Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set or graph more sets of real numbers. But this time what we want to do is that we want to graph on the number line where it's between two sets of values. So for example, here's what we're going to use right here. This is the set of all x values such that 2 is less than x is less than 8. So this is called a three-part inequality. And just as I said right now, it's read 2 is less than x is less than 8. But more commonly, the way that we usually read this is we say that x is between 2 and 8. That's usually how we say that, because if x has a less than symbol and a greater than symbol on both sides, then that means that it must be in between 2 and 8. And hopefully that makes sense there. I mean, if you said that x is less than 8, so smaller than 8, but yet x is bigger than 2, so that means it's in between 8 and 2 then. It's bigger than 2, but then smaller than 8 right there. Okay? Alright, so let's actually graph this one right now and see how this works. So let's graph this guy. Alright, so 2 is less than x. Now you can also read this right here. You can read this part as x is greater than 2. You see what I did right here? If you just write the x on the, so basically I just switched these two right here. If you switch them, but then you also have to flip the inequality because it has to keep the same sign, then the next is bigger than 2. So if you were to graph x is bigger than 2, well, wouldn't that mean that you would go to 2, open circle, and we know that you would go to the right. Correct? Now, if you were to take this guy right here, and that right there is x is less than 8, then you would have gone to 8 with the open circle, and you would have gone to the left. And check it out. Notice what happens here. See how both arrows collide? So in that case, the way that you graph this is we actually don't use the arrows in this case. We actually just draw a straight line between those two. So we're just going to draw a line from here to there. And bam, there we have it. We can go ahead and say that all x values that are between 2 and 8 are represented right here. And doesn't it make sense that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that those numbers can fit in for x, right? And as a matter of fact, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, and 2.9, and all that kind of stuff. Like, so it's really like everything in between. Those could all work in between those right there. And there it is. So that's how you were to write that. And if you also wanted to write this in interval notation, you can do that by doing the same thing here. So the left number is 2, so we're going to use a parenthesis, and the right number is 8, so we're going to use a parenthesis as well, once again because it is not a closed circle, but they're open. Okay, so let's do an example now of this. Actually, we're going to do 2 here. So let's write this in interval notation and graph it. Okay, so let's just straight go into the interval notation right now. So this right here reads, if you want to just take this part right here, that right there is x is less than or equal to -4. Okay, if you have to do that, then that would mean that we're going to graph it right now. If you go to -4, we're going to have a solid dot, and it says x is less than -4, so it's going to go to the left. And then this part right here is x is less than 2. So I go to 2, and I go to the left. And I made a mistake here, and I just caught it right now. I was supposed to switch the inequality, and I didn't do that. So let me just go ahead and switch that. So actually, it should have been like this, which then would change this guy. Aha! And I knew that I made an error because the arrows are supposed to collide. They're not supposed to go in opposite directions, and not in these cases at least. We will get to ones where they do actually go in opposite, but not yet. So since they collide, we can just go ahead and just do a straight line between both of those, and it's in between -4 and 2. So if I'm going to write this in interval notation, my left number is -4 with a bracket. My right number is 2 with a bracket. Why a bracket? Because they have closed circles. Alright, so let's just go straight to the interval right now. See how there's no number or there's no line right here? So I know that's going to be a parenthesis 0. And since this does have a line underneath it, it's going to be a bracket 7. So actually, you can go pretty quickly from the set notation to the interval by just looking whether or not it has the equal to symbol in the inequality. Now, if you're going to graph this, this says x is greater than 0. So I'm going to go to 0, open circle, and put greater than. It goes to the right. And this is x is less than 7, less than or equal to 7. So it's going to be a straight line just like that.